The following is a special presentation of XCW.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to XCW Inception. You know, we structured things a little differently this time.
Yeah, I guess a nice little table.
That was a terrible furniture pun. But we're back for XCW Inception. It's May 7th, 2004, even though it's not May 7th, 2004. That's just the show we're watching. It doesn't have a name. 10 years. 20 years now, come this next year. And we changed, not only did we structure things differently, but the show was structured differently too. We had a trampoline on the show. That was
very different.
That was the pun I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
It just didn't bounce back the way I wanted it to. I'm not good at the puns.
No, you're not.
I'm not good at the
Let's
pun
just keep on,
but
with the first trampoline show, I had to make a really crude joke while we were watching it, about how they called it a jumpaline until Chris Jones' mom jumped on it.
Yeah. Speaking of Chris Jones, he was in the first match.
Yes, he was. I think that's why I probably made the joke.
Your joke was as bad as my pun.
It was.
We also saw some other things on this show, some big returns. Nick Klaus coming back during Fletch's Peep Show.
Yep.
So that was great. We also saw the first meeting of Kurt Acid and DTC in the main event. And then Blade and Fletch in a no-holds-barred match, which, as we learned last episode, before the cameras ever caught an XCW taping, they had just gotten out of a fresh feud with one another. Mm-hmm. So the no-holds-barred wasn't as random as I may have thought.
Yeah, we both kind of wondered where that stip came from, and now we know.
Yeah, so there was Fletch during the Peep Show also announced the match card going through the later the night. We got a preview of what would be happening, as well as a little bit of promotion for the beginning of Over the Edge. Still a great name. We also saw Eternal Darkness, Lucifer, Nick Klaus, and Biohazard, with Nick Klaus making his comeback in a cruiserweight style open matchup. It was called a tag team match on commentary a time or two, and they did tag in and out, but it was actually a fatal four-way elimination contest for the Cruiserweight Championship. So what do you see being the shining star of this show before we start the evaluations?
Oh, as far as people go, I think, it's almost a two-way tie for what in my opinion, was the match of the night, and it's Jones and Cynical. Those two just their star. Jones just having come in, Cynical, pretty much just
Pretty sure this was Jones. That would be Jones's first one-on-one match in XCW.
Yeah.
Obviously, he made his debut in the Battle Royal, as many great stars go to do. And if you ask Chris Jones, the greatest star shown that night was himself. So, before we get into the evaluations, obviously, I personally didn't get to write much down about the Jones Cynical matchup, at least not on this show, but during the Reigns show, which we'll cover next episode,
Yeah,
I had a lot to
had
say
a
about that
lot
Power
of
Championship
notes.
match.
Lots of notes about that.
But this show, despite what Fletch may have said last time we had him on, where the storylines and stuff don't really start coming into play until the 05 season, I feel like this show kind of kicked off a bit of the storytelling, because you had obviously warm-up, I guess, lack of a better term, warm-up matches going into the Reigns show, which would lead to Over the Edge. And you had obvious feuds building, like Jones and Cynical and DTC and Kurt Acid, who we know DTC and Kurt Acid would go on at Over the Edge to have a championship match. Blade and Fletch kind of finishing things out from their pre-camera feud. And then the Cruiserweight title match, I feel like, was kind of the here's your spot fest match, which, I mean, E. Lucifer obviously out there doing double underarm power bombs and stuff proves the Cruiserweight spot fest that would be.
It is a Cruiserweight, that type of match. It just leads it to being a spot fest, in my opinion.
Which
I enjoy from time to time. So.
I personally think Blade and Fletch would take match of the night. Very close second to that Cruiserweight title match. There was something about the main event that killed it being the match of the night for me. And I'm sure we'll get into what that was later. And it has to do with one person. But we're going to take a quick commercial break, get into the evaluations of each match, and then following that, we'll obviously have the Fletch question time. We'll give our star ratings of each match. So let's cut to that beautiful commercial break, and we'll see you on a moment.
See you later.
Anywhere I went, I pretended to be unaffected by the stupid people questioning me. But in reality, I did it all intentionally. It made you think I give in to the pressure and leave. It made you think I give in to depression and bleed. I make an enemy of anybody threatening me, and I'm the one who determines who I am destined to be. When did I fall down? Can't look at you now. Lay your heart in dread. When it is flux, can't look at you now. Lay your life in dread. This is my legacy. Life or death to me. It's like the air I breathe, and you can suffocate me now. You can't burn my empire, but you still try. No. You can play God, but you can't kill my legacy. It's life or death to me. You said that I'd be nothing. How does it feel that I fucked on? You can't kill me no matter how hard you try. So turn around if you wanna get out alive. You said I'd never make it, but look at me now. Set the fuck down. You can't stop me, you already had to try. Now get it back in the line. Right now. You'll never break me down. You'll never break me. This is my legacy. Life or death to me. It's like the air I breathe, and you can suffocate me now. You can't burn my empire, but you still try. No. You can play God, but you can't kill my legacy. It's life or death to me.
Now, I'm going to let you take the charge on this first match evaluation. Opening the show, we had Chris Jones and the newly crowned Power Champion, Cynical, going mano a mano.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I don't have many notes, but I know that, like, as I was watching it, there was more than one time where I think, oh, that was a cool move, that was awesome, and like I almost didn't want to write, and happened to look down from the TV
Didn't want to miss
because
anything.
yeah, I didn't want to miss anything, and that like I said, their match the next show. We have thoughts, but we'll save those for next episode.
I mean,
stay tuned.
So does Chris Jones. If you ask him, the worst match he ever had was with Nick or Cynical. Sorry, not Nick Klaus.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him later in the show.
Yeah, but yeah, just those trampoline shows. I watched them before we started doing Inception.
I didn't.
Back in the day when I first started with XCW, and I'm so glad there aren't that many of them, because there's just, it's hard to sell on trampoline a slam.
Not for Kurt Acid.
Well,
takes the bump, gets up, stumbles around, and then
yeah. I mean, he did the whole flare flop thing, which would be
got that Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan selling.
Yeah, we were saying something about that, but yeah, it's you can definitely see, this feud is being built, and it's gonna go forward. It's gonna be, gonna be great. But yeah, there's still a lot of green, but it's definitely, you can see the progression. And
so obviously, what would you give this match rating? I would give you my opinions on the match, but I don't have anything written down here. I
didn't make any notes. You were busy.
I was busy being busy. So
yeah. Let's see. My star rating for this was a 3.5.
Well, I mean, going off name,
almost went to a 4.
Going off of name value, I kind of would see why you would rate it that. But if it's anything like the match from the next encounter on the Reigns show, I don't know how you got that rating. But following that up, we have Fletch's Peep Show, which would see the return of Nick Klaus, as well as a rundown of the card and Fletch running his mouth about Blade and Kurt Acid and why he lost the World Championship the show before, having competed in 2 matches, even though one of them was a Battle Royal. Those aren't that taxing, give or take. He was exhausted. He had to come up with excuses. What a good guy. He made sure to remind you.
He is a good guy.
Made sure to remind you about that he was the good guy.
Yes.
Obviously, the big talk of the Peep Show was the return of Nick Klaus.
Yeah.
Having not been seen on screen since the XPW days with Extreme Power. And then we wouldn't get directly into Fletch's match. That would come later in the show. We would actually follow that with the Cruiserweight Open Tag Team Fatal 4-Way Elimination Abomination. Actually, Elimination Abomination is a cool name.
That would be cool. But yeah, it was just it's one of those commentary. Commentary would have helped, and announcing it. Announcer who could give us exactly what this match is about. It was mildly confusing at the beginning. It's like, they're tagging. Is this a tag match? Is it there's elimination style. They're tagging everybody.
Yeah,
and that's
hard
like,
to follow.
it's one of those type. But it's like,
it was a very lucha-esque match in the way it worked.
Yes.
Everybody tagged everybody, which if you watch, there's actually a lucha match that does the same thing.
There's been matches like that on WWE.
There was the Cruiserweight Open.
There's been matches like that before. It's just they commentary would explain it to you, and like I said, announcing.
We had a little bit of that with Fletch behind the camera.
Yeah. It was like I said, a good match. Good match. The spots. Once again, it's cruiserweight, so you're going to get
that. Be your spot fest.
Yeah, it's going to be your spot fest match, and there were some spots in there that were really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious part of gimmick of E. Lucifer and Eternal Darkness was that they were the spookier characters.
Yeah.
They were the edgier, darker style characters. We see that a lot now with DJ Wilbert and the Prince of Demise and Shane Shaw and even before that with other people. But it was Eternal Darkness's no selling and Lucifer's no selling that kind of sold the fact that they were trying to be the spookier. You've got to do more to get the Stings. They were trying to be the Stings, which it's obvious because E. Lucifer was wearing a Sting style face paint. But decent moves and selling all around, other than the spooky characters, no sellings.
Which is part of the character. So.
The finish was a little all over the place. It happened very quickly.
Yes.
I feel like it's something that happens with the cruiserweights a lot. And it was another thing I noted that Bostic was playing Biohazard, obviously one of the two split personalities. He was the current cruiserweight champion going into this contest.
He was champ walking in.
When did he win the title? Did he win it in a tournament in Rio de Janeiro? Because last show we saw him, he didn't have the title, and he wasn't announced as the cruiserweight champion either. So did he win it in a random tournament in Rio de Janeiro? Did we just crown him at a house show?
That might be a question for
I guess we'll have
segment later.
I guess we'll have to ask Fletch later.
Fletch in the hot seat there.
But I had also wrote down the confusion of the tag team versus the Fatal 4 because commentary was calling it a tag team match. Obviously, and there were some moments where people were working with one another to get certain moves and spots done. We saw Nick Klaus walk away as the brand new Cruiserweight champion after pinning the former champion Biohazard in the final two of the match. It was elimination style. I had this match rated at a 3.5 stars.
I had it at a 3.
It for me just barely missed being match of the night. It was a pube hair away from being the match of the night.
That's where it was for me too. The only thing that took anything out of it was that slight confusion at the beginning. What kind of match is this? So it's tag. Okay, they can tag Eric. That's the only thing that brought down.
That's what
the star rating for me. I probably would give him a 4, but that took some of the enjoyment for me.
Speaking of taking some enjoyment, a no holds barred match is always enjoyable to watch. You get your hardcore, you get your cringe, you get your blood and guts street fight crash bang bang, throw them up, shoot them up, knock them down, send them flying, spinning around, whatever you want to say. Rawhide. Blade versus Fletch. Obviously, Biohazard having had a match immediately before this. It cut directly to the match. Gotta wonder if maybe he was exhausted being the same guy, just different personalities. That brain is working some crazy magic up there. I had this as a very back and forth matchup. It was very neck and neck. It wasn't one being way overly dominant over the other, even though Fletch did triple Blade's size. I mean, Blade's standing here when Fletch is up here. It's Great Khali and Hornswoggle.
Which, as I will say, that size differential tells a story without you having to even do a move.
And I mean,
it does do the
Blade did kind of play to the size difference, and as did Fletch. Fletch kind of ragdolling, especially with that F5 on the boxes in the middle of the trampoline. Fletch was kind of playing to the bigger man, which is weird. We don't normally see Fletch playing the bigger man in a match. Normally he's pretty even playing field with whoever he's wrestling.
Yeah.
So being the bigger guy in the match was a bit of a stark contrast. And I know I had this as my potential match of the night, but one of the things that I didn't think about when I had called that my potential match of the night was the cameraman's awful camera work. It made it really hard to follow the match when all you saw was people's legs and asses.
I made a joke. I said this match isn't half bad considering we can only see half of it.
Like,
it's like, this is the good part. And yeah, there were spots that I was like, that probably looked amazing if we could see it.
Yeah, and that kind of kills it for me.
Yeah,
like, I had this as my match of the night.
and
but now I'm changing my
down.
mind.
Yeah, knocked it down a bit because the camera work on that was
rough.
Yes,
that's one of those things we talked about last show. Would not fly today.
Oh my gosh!
That match would have either been refilmed or scrapped entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's always a Fletch match too. Anytime the camera gets shit on, it's a Fletch match.
It seems like
cutting off heads.
Bad luck.
Void completely forgetting to record the match. The main cam of Justin Parsley versus Fletch at SummerMania, a match 20 years in the making, just not happening. It's crazy.
Yeah. When camera goes awry, it's unfortunately 90%. Yeah, it's a Fletch match. Yep.
Then I've got a question about that for Fletch later tonight. The weapon shots in this match, the ones we did get full shots of, were brutal.
Oh, they look nasty. I wouldn't want to take any of those.
Like,
like I know that several times where it's that's no.
And the way Bostic sold the F5 into the boxes, we all know those soda boxes aren't that thick. They're pretty thin, but the way Bostic sold it made you think those boxes were death.
Yeah.
He even did the little.
Yeah. I even twitched after the end. I was like, oh, I love that sell.
I had one note here written just. Bostic's dead. That was my note. Bostic is dead. What do you done?
He had a yeah. I was saying this. If the camera had been better, possibly match of the night.
Yeah,
it would definitely have been in the run. It definitely would be in a thought process. But yeah, that camera just was so distracting, and like it's like, oh, this what I can see, it looks good. Unfortunately, I can't see all of it.
Yeah, I mean, given who you have in the match too, it's Fletch and Dylan Bostic. They're gonna tear it up. They are two of the top guys of the show, which makes sense why they were co-main event. I had this match rated at a solid 2.5 stars. It would have been way more had we been able to see the entirety of the match, and not the only part of the match that didn't get cut off was the Fletch throwing Dylan Bostic out of the ring onto the box. It didn't get cut off. It just didn't get seen on camera because the cameraman didn't follow the action like you're supposed to. Blade is the man in the box.
Yes. It was. I have a 3-star. And like I said, would have been 3.5, but the camera just is so distracting, and it definitely knocked a 0.5 star off on my rating.
And well, that brings us to the main event, the one that everybody wanted to see, the last match on the show. It was Kurt Acid and DTC, the boat late great. And the first thing I noted about this match, why in the bloody hell was DTC doing backflips during Kurt Acid's entire entrance? Like, all he did the entire time was a backflip. Multiple of them. It felt like he was testing the durability of the trampoline.
I think that might have been it, to be honest. Or, well, it's... Who knows what goes on in DTC's head? I don't think he even knows.
Not brain cells, that's for sure. It was a good match, minus DTC's no selling. And like I said earlier, there was something about this match that kind of killed it for me, and that was really it. I specifically wrote down Acid's trying to work DTC, but DTC isn't. And that's because...
That was definitely at the beginning. He
gave Acid nothing.
Yeah, he was not giving Acid anything.
Acid would go for a move, he'd reverse. It was very DTC wants to get DTC shit in, and you can tell, and it just not. It didn't work at the very beginning. There was a point where it kind of switched pace, and we got a little bit more acid action in, but like DTC straight up kicked Kurt Acid right in the gut. Like it was you heard, and one in the face too. All you heard was you heard.
Yeah.
It was just a square
snug. Definitely snug.
I had him trying to kill Kurt Acid. That was, and then again DTC's no selling. I wrote that down twice because I felt like it was the point of the match. Acid's flare bump is what kind of saved the selling of the match for me.
He definitely was. There was like I almost was to the point of overselling.
Yeah.
To a point, I was like, is he taking the piss on DTC by selling as much as he is, or it's like
I would too. I mean, that in and of itself is a form of a receipt. If you're gonna stiff me and no sell me the entire beginning of the match, don't be surprised if I sell something you did so stupid that it makes it look ridiculous.
Yeah,
because there's different ways to give receipts, and some of them are emotional, some of them are physical. I had a really crazy pile driver. That pile driver was nasty.
Yeah,
it was gnarly. There was a double down spot, and my only remark on that was, why was DTC the first up on the double down?
Yes.
Acid did the Samoan drop to set up for the double down, and DTC was the first to stand up. At least I think it was a Samoan drop. And DTC was the first one up. Why, when Acid was the one that delivered the move? I could understand doing the double down off of the move because it fit into the timing of the match. But why?
I think that's me. Like we said, I think that's us looking at it through modern day lens, and we have to think the psychology is not quite there. Yeah. They're just still, all these guys are still learning ring psychology. They're still learning everything.
They actually had a ring to work with this time where they could go out of the ring to do out of the ring spots and stuff like that. DTC kicking out of the finisher and then just like rolling off of the ring, kind of no selling the finish, which really in a way irked me because the Acid.
Oh, you were very, very upset at that
because
watching this.
The Acid Slam, at least when I came in, was super protected. Like that and the FML were like the most protected moves on the roster, and for DTC to just he didn't even like sell the kick out like it was the last second or anything. He just
it was a very well, like you said, on tune with his no selling for the entire match.
lack of ring awareness and psychology, I guess. I mean, they were using the springs for rope breaks. So, what else did you have to say about this match? What did your notes give?
Shoot, I honestly, I hate to say, but I didn't get many notes down for this one. I think a lot of it was I was just like almost getting amused by your just progressively getting more upset with DTC's no selling throughout the whole match.
And I mean, I was more.
He's just getting super upset.
I
was like, it sucks.
It does.
But once again, I think a lot of that speaks to how many these guys were, and they're still learning.
To Kurt Acid's credit, he did try.
And
he
like
tried
I said,
the match.
there were the Kurt Acids, the Clutches, Chris Jones, that were really gung ho about this, and wanted to make it look even back then as good as they could.
Yeah. Whereas DTC is just out there to have fun, which is something Fletch mentioned before, and obviously DTC had his fun in the match. The match for me went on way too long.
By the end it was getting a little draggy for me,
especially with that weird referee interference. Like Chris Jones was the referee, and then you had, I think it was Cynical interfering, and just then Cynical tried to ref, and there was no rhyme or reason or purpose for the interference. It just happened, and it kind of felt again like people going into business for themselves and just doing stuff. Yep. I mean, it got so bad that they ended up in the ring, and like DTC was attacking Chris Jones to get him to get the fuck out of the ring, which kind of killed the overall aesthetic of the one-on-one between DTC and Kurt Acid, which was supposed to be used to build to their title match at Over the Edge.
Yes, it did take a bit.
And I do have questions for Fletch regarding this match. Like, why did Kurt Acid win? And what I want to know is, how did DTC kick out of the Acid Slam? It was so protected, but loses to a pedigree. Like, stuff like that, which is questions, I guess.
We've got that segment coming up where we will have the man himself here.
Which, I guess, those are all questions Fletch can ask us right after this very commercial break. We will have the owner back in the hot seat, much like he was last episode, to answer some of our questions and give us a little more insight on to the May 7th, 2004 show. So we'll be right back with more Inception.
To be more than a conqueror, you have to learn to enjoy the pain. If you want to survive, you can try to defeat me. You don't know it's the pain that'll feed me. And I'm gonna take back what you took before. All the bones that you're breaking, you pretend you're the one that can save me. Now I'm taking it back, it was never yours. Fighting for my focus, give the pain a purpose. Light the fire inside, feel it come alive. Show them what I'm made of. Victories for the brave ones who never bow the knee when it's do or die. One more time. Surviving the game. I can be unstoppable. Gonna walk through hell and to shake the walls. Surviving the game. Living the impossible. I'm a champion indestructible. Survive, 'cause I'm surviving the game. I am more than a conqueror. The past behind me, life is ahead. I'll take the way of the warrior. I walk alone, no fear to the death. Surviving the game. I can be unstoppable. Gonna walk through hell, gonna shake the walls. Surviving the game. Living the impossible. I'm a champion indestructible. Survive, 'cause I'm surviving the game. Surviving the game. Surviving the game. Living the impossible. I'm a champion indestructible. Survive, 'cause I'm surviving the game. Unstoppable, gonna be indestructible. I can be unstoppable, gonna be indestructible.
And we are back here on XCW Inception with the boss man himself in the hot seat. The good guy sitting beside me. We got some questions for you, obviously. I'm going to let Festus take charge and start the questioning. I mean, obviously, I can't interrogate you too much.
I mean, that's what I'm here for, right?
I was about to say,
Been there,
I'm
done
here to
that.
be interrogated.
Yeah.
You like being interrogated, don't you, Festus?
No, I didn't enjoy
Yeah.
that at all.
How big is a
Look how
dinosaur?
terrified. What? look at the
See, here's the
interrogation with
thing.
me.
It's fine when you're being interrogated when knowledge is power, and I have it all right here. See what
Yes.
I did there? I was just taking your stupid puns. Okay, let's...
Did it
get
better.
to it. Oh shoot! What questions did I have from this show?
So you're gonna hit me with the pop boxes? Is that what we're gonna?
No. Actually, my thoughts about the opener. Did you know that how good Chris Jones and Cynical were going to be?
No, I mean at this
when you were when you
obviously
book them to face each other.
Right. Well, obviously I knew.
Afterwards, did you go?
Oh well, yeah, I knew that there was something there post match.
Yeah.
I knew of Chris Jones's work prior to XCW before his debut because I had worked with him in BYWE.
Yeah.
So I was familiar with his work. I was actually the one that told Kurt, I said, hey, we need to reach out to Chris. I think Chris would be a great addition to what we're doing. That's when I found out later from Cynical, hey, I know this guy and he's a douchebag. But
again, some things never change.
Right. But no, like I'd known of Chris Jones from working with him prior to BYWE, so I knew what kind of talent he was. Cynical was one of those guys that, much like the Brady Bransons of today, he's not a genuine wrestling fan. Like, he could sit down and he could watch a pay-per-view and he would enjoy it. Okay. But he's not a guy that's going to follow around. He doesn't know the story. He doesn't know anything about wrestling per se.
Yeah, because you tell Brady, hey, this guy does this movie. He's like, huh?
Yeah. And Cynical was that type of guy. He could sit down with me at a WrestleMania party and enjoy himself. But if you say, hey, do you know who Crash Holly is? He has no clue.
Yeah.
And that's just like, that was the crazy thing about Cynical. When once we trained him up and he's out there and the things that he's doing with his body, wrestling came so natural to him. And so I already knew, from the very first bump that I seen him, I'm like, this guy's going to be something. And that's why we should go forth with him being as part of VK2. Because I think not to mention the VK2 was actually a name that he created. And the original Virtual Killers was myself, Nick Klaus, and DTC in 2003. And then later, fast forward, VK2, we Nick Klaus kind of seen his way out, Cynical seen his way in, and it's VK2. But the original Virtual Killers name, actually Cynical it was inspired by a game that he used to play. It was a PC game called Tenaris. And it was, one of the very first games that I know of that you could play on a PC on the internet against other people. And, Cynical was obsessed with this game. And they had different teams and stuff that they would all come together and they would chat. It's literally just like PC games now, but in the late 90s. So, I mean, that tells you right there.
Yeah.
But he was in a group called the Virtual Killers, and that is kind of what brought everything together for us. But, I didn't know what I had in these two being a rivalry. I just wanted a strong rivalry for Cynical starting out because I knew what he was going to bring to the table, and I knew what kind of a talent Chris Jones was. But I had no idea what would become, another 5 years of these guys just destroying each other.
So we had talked last episode about how if you could go back, you would structure the show differently and put different matches in different places. This show felt way more balanced and structured than the last show. Was that something you aimed to do, or did it kind of just fall into place like that?
Partly falls into place, but I also started to notice things like that. Obviously, a lot of the things that we do today and all that stuff, like I said on the last episode, was a lot of those things came with 2005 is when I really started to nail down certain things being in certain places. I feel like this one might have been a strike of luck a little bit, but I knew I didn't want to start off with the in-ring segment. So I didn't want to start with the Peep Show. Obviously, Dylan and I was an established feud. We have Kurt Acid in the middle of the VK2 and MPG thing, so I wanted Kurt and DTC, and we'd already had a plan in place at this point where DTC was going to be the next champion. Everything's leading to Over the Edge, so to position them in the main event made sense. I wanted to feature the Cruiserweight title fairly early because it was something that we hadn't seen on camera to this point. And then, myself and Blade was pretty heated, so we put that more towards the end, and everything else kind of fell into place.
So, did Biohazard, in fact, win the Cruiserweight title in a tournament in Rio de Janeiro? Or how did he become the Cruiserweight champion? Because the first time we
as
saw him...
As well-traveled as Dylan is, I don't even think he's been to Rio de Janeiro now. So, no, actually, Dylan had won the championship in it was like a little mini battle royal that we had at the very end of the 2003 season. For whatever reason, we didn't acknowledge him as champion or have the titles. And of course, a lot of that, it was the lack of the commentary and stuff that we had in Sin. And it may have just been because of the location change and stuff like that, we may have not had all the props that we would normally have prior to that. This was actually at my house, so I had everything at my disposal right there. So I think that might have played into it. Not being acknowledged was probably just a mistake because the focus was on the European Championship, or was by design to make sure that the European title got to shine and not the Cruiserweight title.
Okay,
that makes sense.
So, did the cameraman that filmed your match get shit canned? Because that camera work was awful.
This is the reason why if you watch modern day XCW, you never see DTC on camera.
Oh, that was he was on camera for that.
So he was still no selling matches. He wasn't even in it to no sell it.
Well, I mean, we always blame the fact that he was so short.
He's so
short.
short.
Was tickling his balls but no. He just wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, I know how.
And you guys are right. It is always my match. Just saying.
I know you're a stickler for how footage looks, and that's why I stay.
And even still,
I stay far away from those.
Even
things.
still back then, he got his ass raped.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, a lot of things backstage that goes with that, of course, and it's not like now where we have these beautiful cameras that stabilize and do everything for us. They focus for us. These guys actually had to stand there and they had to be very still. And when you have, Cynical is a shaky guy. At this point, Chris Jones had already, he took off for the day. It's not like it is nowadays where it's like, well, you're here till the end of the show. Guys came and gone through the day. I think we had Nick Klaus on cam a couple of times, but we also had to try to keep two people positioned in the commentary spot because we didn't have specific camera people, specific announcers, specific referees. So it was who's left kind of thing.
Speaking of people coming and going throughout the day, what was with the van pulling up in the middle of the match?
The van was actually Nick Klaus's mother picking him up. Legitimately. But how are you guys going to talk about this whole show but not talk about Chris coming in on the moped?
Oh, yeah. I was about to say that's on one of the.
Didn't have anything written down about that match, or I would have.
He came in on that yellow moped. That was supposed to be a thing, but it wasn't.
Yep. I have that actually on my notes. About that match. It was a scooter entrance. Yes.
Yeah. It wasn't. It ended up being the very first special entrance in XCW on accident. So.
Yeah.
So, did the main event go way longer than it was supposed to? Because it felt towards the end like it was kind of drawing out and going a little bit longer than need be.
So we wanted the match to be a little longer because it was main event, but we also wanted for Kurt Acid to be able to showcase more submissions. And I know that didn't happen. And part of the reason that didn't happen is because if anyone has worked with DTC knows that nothing ever goes the way it's supposed to with DTC. And this was where a lot of things started to shine through on DTC as a person and as a character. DTC isn't long for this world in XCW. He's very in and out. And a lot of that is for backstage attitude.
That's why we had a Ground Zero saga.
Yeah. Backstage attitude and, situations like this where he's kind of not following along with what the plan was. And the plan at this point was make sure that you get Kurt Acid over. He's the new champion. And then DTC will get his comeuppance later on when he goes one-on-one with Kurt Acid in a table match at Over the Edge. What derailed all of those plans coming up on the next episode when we talk about the Rain show is, Kurt Acid's not even there. The following show after that, there was no interaction between DTC and Kurt Acid in that either. So a lot of our builds didn't get built because of, how in and out things were back then. You haven't even seen Hazard, who is the XCW Tag Team Champion, and we're 2 shows in and we've yet to see the Tag Team Champion. So things were different back then. And, this was supposed to be the start of their build. And unfortunately it didn't happen. Of course, DTC goes against Cyrus next episode, and of course DTC got the win so that he can keep his momentum towards the title shot. But Kurt Acid wasn't available for that show.
And that's something I mentioned in my notes here. Why did Kurt Acid win that match when knowing that DTC is building to face him later for the title at Over the Edge?
Because it was supposed to be a rubber match in the end. Okay. And so with Kurt Acid not being available for the Rain show, that put a damper, no pun intended, on everything because I wasn't able to have the DTC and Kurt Acid match on the card. Originally, DTC and Kurt Acid were supposed to start the show in a rematch where DTC would then earn his opportunity to face him at Over the Edge officially for the title, whereas the main event would be the hardcore Power Championship match between Cynical and Chris Jones, with everything in the middle. Myself and Cyrus was supposed to be one-on-one in that show, and then of course the debut of Cyborg. Things didn't go the way that they were supposed to. Obviously, there was a goddamn monsoon that day as well, so things didn't pan out like we usually see through storylines and things like that. In today's day and age. Back then, it was different, and we were kids. So, there were times like there's a show coming up that Chris Jones misses because he got grounded. Like, when you think about it, when you really put it into perception of what XCW is now, and you go, what?
Grounded?
That was real. Like, that's, he burped in a car and got grounded. I swear to it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, speaking of things not working out and not staying around, WWE had a football promotion known as the XFL, and it didn't work for them. Why on God's green earth did you think it was going to work for XCW?
Generally, we had this group of guys that we always get together. We would go to the middle school, and we would just have football games just for fun's sake. Being the guy that I am now, I've got this camera and all this stuff. Well, fuck, we already get together and do it. Most of the guys on the roster participate. Some of the guys that you may not even know, because obviously during this period of time, Hazard wasn't just an XCW, he also ran NAW, his own brand. And so he had guys that, the Tom Aldridges, the Wet Dreams of the world, all wrestled in NAW. So I was like, well, shit, we have all those guys, our guys, let's just create an extra football league, XFL, and, we can record it and make it legit, and it just never panned out. All those times that we played football prior to this somehow fell apart. And part of that is, I think, because XCW became more of a focus in all of our lives because it was growing so rapidly.
Yeah.
So it's why So was the finish of the match always planned to be a pedigree in the main event? Or did that get called on the fly because DTC kicked out of the acid slam? And
I'm assuming that it was an on-the-fly decision between the two of them, and we didn't have specific moves that go to the different characters in the show at the time. So it's not like, oh, you stole my finish. It was, more playful back then, and I don't think Cynical had a finish until, Cold Day of 05.
Oh, wow.
And it's not even the Sinometry, it's something completely different.
Oh, wow.
So I think it was like a sit-out chokeslam thing. I don't know. Strange. But it's a different time, and honestly, they probably came up with their own finish, and we just went with whatever they wanted. I assumed that DTC probably blew the first finish, so just judging off of it,
having booked the DTC a time or two, that tends to happen. So do you have any more questions for the man in the hot seat?
I don't believe so.
Alrighty.
So I have a few remarks I could probably
we
chime in.
Obviously, we usually pick our star of the show. We didn't actually pick that earlier in the show like we normally would.
Yeah.
So I figured now that we've got the boss in the hot seat, we can get his
absolutely.
opinion on who he thinks the star of the show was, while also getting our opinions. Festus, who do you think is the star of the show?
Oh, gosh.
Well, the match is obviously Cynical and Chris.
Yeah. That's my
Especially
that's my
Chris
opinion.
doing the crazy
And
clothesline crossbody thing off the trampoline,
and I think it's Chris.
Well, had I been able to see that match, I probably would have agreed with you guys. But I have my match of the night as the cruiserweight match, mainly because of all the spots and everything in it. But my star of the show was actually Blade and Biohazard. Just going off of everything they did the show, and everything they did in each of the matches looked good. It wasn't the same sloppy stuff we saw the show before on the ground.
I just wish that we would have had the opportunity to have more things involved than fucking pop boxes. So ridiculous. I mean, there's a show coming up in July that you guys are going to see where Dylan hit me with paper. So, I don't know. I'm selling a paper cut, I guess.
I don't know. They pulled out the next show, the Rain show, when we get to it, they're milk jugs.
Cynical actually said the milk jug was one of the worst things to this point.
I've heard him say that
So
before,
bad.
actually.
He said the little things hurt, and Cynical said that the worst spot of the entire match was the milk jug. So.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll get into that next show when we talk about the Rain show. But are there any closing remarks that you actually have for us this time?
Yeah, I think the star of the show is Nick Klaus. I think the whole show was revolved around the return of Nick Klaus, who was a major integral part of XCW in 2003. So him coming back after missing all of the 2004 dates prior to this was a big deal to bring Nick back into the fold. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for Nick to make a full-on comeback. There's a couple of shows that we did in early June that weren't televised shows as well. So, and Nick was a part of a few of those, but unfortunately, things just didn't pan out for Nick in this run. You would see Nick come back in 2005 and have a much better year. But I think that this show was a lot about Nick and his return to the company, because he was such an important part of XCW in the early days. So, and he got to work with, like he was working with Kurt Acid, who was Eternal Darkness, and I think that was that really helped him kind of get back into what we were trying to do.
Now, did the trampoline for you add anything that the ground was missing? Like, did it feel better to be on the trampoline versus on the ground? Because obviously I know the answer legitimately, bump wise and stuff, how it feels to be on one or the other, but like, how did it feel show wise?
I hate the trampoline. I do like the fact that it gives us a stage somewhere to, it's not just rolling around in the dirt. It's
there's a ring, there's a platform.
Yeah. So I do like that element, and we went on sleep. We got the trampoline for free. And so when we got the opportunity to get Trampoline, it was offered to us. We're like, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we get the Trampoline. You want to try it out? So we did a couple of shows on it. It was never supposed to be permanent, but it gave us a good idea of, okay, let's feel it out. Let's see what things are like. Ultimately, I think it brought something to the show for what it was, but I ultimately don't think that it was the right fit for the style of show that I wanted to present. So getting the 3 Trampoline shows out that we did, and we had fun with it, cool. I don't like the fact that you can't properly sell. Obviously, bumps are not going to hurt.
Bounce right back.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is, if you notice, like, we were very strict about going forward after this show about not jumping. You see a lot of guys that are in this, they're just bouncing and doing flips.
DTC spinning the entirety of Kurt Acid's entrance doing backflips.
And you'll see that going forward in the other shows where, hey, try to hit your moves, try to do what you normally would without the trampoline bounce. So that it gave more of a realism feel to what we were doing. And so you'll see that come into fruition more in the next 2 episodes. But like I said, I think the biggest thing coming out of this for me, Nick Klaus's return was huge. And had he progressed through the season, I think he was going to be an Intercontinental Champion. I think we were going to have, eventually he was going to take that championship from Vapor so that Vapor could concentrate on NPG, VK2 rivalry, and Nick would be on the undercard, being able to work with guys like Psycor for the international title. So, unfortunately, things like that didn't happen. And it is what it is. It's the Cruiserweight curse in XCW. And I truly believe there's a Cruiserweight curse.
You might have a point there.
And you're going to say it.
I'm just thinking about
Greed 2004 coming up. And we're going to introduce another star. We're going to talk about that, a new star in the Cruiserweight division. And again, the Cruiserweight curse comes into play.
Alrighty, well, curses and boxes and blades and biohazards.
The one thing,
the trampoline box was a good spot.
Was it? Oh, it was a trampoline box. Okay.
Yes, the trampoline box was a good spot. I did the Ric Flair body slam off of it to Dylan through the box. That was a cool spot.
Especially if the camera would have seen it.
Yeah, if the camera had caught that was beautiful.
And then we see Acid throw DTC into it later, and the box completely flips over and it buries
Which
DTC.
was fucking hilarious.
Oh gosh, it's hilarious on camera. It's like he just disappeared. It's like, where the...
So funny.
I had said earlier.
I forgot all about that. So, because he just like, boom, all you see is like a foot fly through the air and he hit that box.
And then,
so damn funny.
By the time the camera got there, he was under it. It was like...
I had said Blade was the man in the box, but it was really DTC.
It was DTC.
So funny enough, during this era, there's actually another thing that was filmed. It was the start of a show, and it never finished. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen that footage ever.
Oh, wow.
There's a peep show with Kurt Acid where everybody throws dog shit at him. I might have to go into the archives and see if I can find those, because that took place in this era as well.
Yeah.
There's also a biohazard entrance where my dad almost hits him with a car, and that would kind of pretty much put a damper on our day. I don't think we completed the show because of that. So, and Dylan is flying through my dad's window. Fuck you, motherfucker! And if you know how spastic Dylan is, you would find why that's so funny.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is. I'd pay it.
It's
I'd
great.
pay money to see that.
I'm gonna have to look. I still have all the original VHS tapes.
So
it exists somewhere. I guarantee.
What would you give this show rating wise overall?
Oh, let's see.
Because we didn't get a final show rating yet.
Final show rating.
Throw dog shit at Benji.
They did throw dog shit at Benji. Pissed him off. It was not a good day. And actually, this took place before Sin. The footage that I'm talking about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this wouldn't be the first time dog shit would come into play with people and pissing them
I was
off.
about to
We're
say,
getting
at
there
least he
someday.
didn't quit.
Yeah.
I quit like a certain someone did after a dog poop incident. But,
Shitty
shoot,
situations.
let's see. What do I want to rate this? I would say a 3. Actually. Although I will say one thing. What did I learn from this? I was reminded that I don't really like trampoline wrestling. As like some of my favorite people to watch wrestle are on this show. It's like I just I'm not.
If
a big
anyone
fan of the
benefited from it,
trampoline.
it was Chris and DTC.
Yeah.
I also learned a few things from this show.
Wait until you get to the show where Hazard wrestles on the trampoline.
A what? Oh God! I learned
May 21st. It's coming up.
Man, I
I
almost want to skip to it.
fuck the Reigns show. I learned that DTC's no selling has never changed. He's still wrestles and acts the exact same way. I also learned that I too still cannot stand. If you go back and watch my free time, I talk about how much I hate trampoline wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm
there with you.
There's only one show I can sit down and watch nowadays that does trampoline wrestling, but that's because they've taken the trampoline and like built a platform under it and put pallets and everything under it, so when it bumps stiffer. It's an actual bump. You don't bump and bounce, which I found on a YouTube video somewhere sometime too. But I had the star of the show overall being Blade and Biohazard, with my match of the night being the Cruiserweight. Overall show rating, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it was one of those shows that I talked about before, other than the XFL promotion, which you never got to pay off to.
So,
having rewatched that.
Okay, so with your expertise on working on a trampoline and knowing, where does this rank for you in terms of the participants versus the other brands that you've been a part of that has a trampoline?
It's definitely up there. You can tell that people actually like doing the moves that they were doing, whereas sometimes you watch trampoline shows and guys just go out there and do stuff. For a while, the only trampoline show I could watch, I never got to be a part of them because they were in Michigan and I couldn't travel at the time. They shut down. MABW actually, for me, set the benchmark of what trampoline wrestling could be, because they didn't sell the trampoline like it was a trampoline. For them, it was...
And I don't feel like people, with the exception of DTC,
sold the trampoline like it was a trampoline.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
I mean, when I'm doing the Michinoku driver or whatever that I did to Blade on the boxes, we sold it like the guy went through an explosive. And
that's one of the things I like about it. I obviously I don't like it's a trampoline, and the rain show for me, that's what scared me the most. Like, I'll wrestle in the rain, I'll wrestle in the snow, I've done it both. But on the trampoline, I'd almost argue is riskier than just taking a pile driver on bare ground. Because, like, that is sketchy shit.
Well, next episode is going to be a barn burner then.
But I think this ranks up there as far as, like, trampoline wrestling and how trampoline wrestling should be presented if you're going to do it. I don't recommend it. I don't like doing it. Last time I did anything on a trampoline, I did my entrance on the trampoline and then did everything else on the outside of the ring. Trampoline held 3 people at once, which was baffling.
Just wait until May 21st.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. The trampoline's going to be touching the ground.
It's Ratitude and MILF Hunter versus Stingray and Hazard for the XCW tag titles.
I guess we'll have to stay tuned for that one on there.
There's also a match with Chris Jones and Corruption. No, not Chris Jones. MILF Hunter and Corruption.
Okay. Well, it's gonna be great. That episode sounds like an amazing one to sit down and watch, especially since MILF Hunter's in 2 matches.
There's actually a story behind that. Yeah. And you got to remember, it's also European champion.
Yeah. So, but closing thoughts? Anything from you to close this out here?
Well, if you ask me, the main event wasn't what we were looking for. Mine and Dylan's match, as well as the opening match between Chris and Cynical, is what made this show. The Cruiserweight match was good. Of course, like you guys talked about, it was very hard to follow. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a big masked character fan. And that's very, crucial through XCW in the first 5 or 6 years.
Well, every smaller show's got to have at least one or two. You got to have the jobbers.
And as the roster fluctuates through the years, you're going to see some more often than not, and vice versa. In this, you're not seeing too many because there's a larger roster. But as the roster begins to diminish later, you're going to see more of those come into play.
Yeah.
For me, the trampoline brings down the value of the show. I'm gonna go with another 2 on this one. Just for there was good builds, and there was a lot of good things that happened within 2 or 3 of the matches. I think the main event not falling into place the way we wanted, and for the fact that it's on the trampoline really brought down the quality of the show to me.
Well, personally, I feel like this show tops Sin. I think this show blows Sin out of the water. It was a lot easier to follow.
And it may be because there's more structure in regard to not having the battle royal and stuff.
Yeah. For me, that's what made it better. I mean,
and the backstage morale was different. And that's something that we should probably bring up a little more on this show going forward. Is what was it like backstage? What was the morale? And I think the group of guys that were together for this show versus Sin. It was more of the tighter knit group. It was guys that hung out more often.
Yeah, you had the boys.
You had the TC, Chris Jones, Cynical, Fletch, Kurt Acid. That's like our core group that hung out at the time, that were around each other at school, hanging out places, doing things together. We didn't hang out with, Rubber Band Man, the Convict, and Cyrus, and a lot of those guys as often. Vapor was in and out of the crew. He had a tough upbringing.
He had the click.
Yeah, he had a tough upbringing. He lived very differently than we did. He had a disabled father. They struggled as a family a lot of times. They would end up in a homeless shelter a year later, which will actually play into some of the stuff once we get to that position to talk about. But I think and Nick Klaus was a part of that tighter group that we hung out with. One of our boys was back in the fold, and I just genuinely think that at this point, we had something new and fresh with the trampoline that helped. We had the tighter group of guys that were together that hung out more often, and then so I think the morale backstage was different. Plus, again, we talked about structure. This one was a little more structured than the other one. That on the fly, the day of, we're changing locations. That's hard. No matter what. No matter if you're putting up a ring, a trampoline, or a mattress. When you're moving locations, especially when you're doing it all in one day, that adds a different element. So, backstage morale definitely helped out with this show.
So, I have one more question before we get out of here, before we close things out with you guys tonight, ladies and gentlemen. You talked about the morale being different, the trampoline being something fresh and different, giving everybody a new platform to work on. At any point during this era were there talks about doing something different with a different style platform, maybe the pallets and the tires, or getting a ring, or sticking with the trampoline before you guys ended up going onto the mattresses?
At this point, no. At this point, it was just a fun hobby. It was something to keep everybody together, something to do after school, because there were times where we were doing non-televised shows on Wednesdays, and then we're doing these shows on Fridays. If you look back on the calendar, 7th, 14th, 21st, all these shows on Trampoline were all right after school. Oh, wow. And we were all in high school, all high school kids, minus Dylan. And so, it was just for fun. Fuck it, you want to do something today? We get the boys together, we'll do a show. So it was different. It was a different time. And I wish that the Wednesday shows would have been filmed, because there were things that happened on the Wednesday shows that were fun and different than everything that you see here. And it is what it is. We didn't have the mentality of 21 years later. I want
everything's on a camera.
I want as much as I possibly can. So it was a different mentality back then. But no, I don't think going to the next level would come up for another year or two.
Alrighty, well, I guess we'll have to find out if that momentum continues on to the next episode, which is the Reigns show, which would precede what we will look at in episode 4.
One close to my heart that I have a bad feeling about. So stay
Over
tuned.
the Edge. So ladies and gentlemen, Ref Festus,
Thank you.
Fletcher, the owner, operator, whatever you want to call him, the good guy. My name is Jaxsin Law. This has been XCW Inception, and we will see you all in the next episode.